Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Tonight we have a late night insight on a fragrance that I have been wearing to bed for the last 5 days. I have absolutely fallen in love with this fragrance, and it's a shame I don't have a bottle because if I could, I would buy a bottle right now. There are some fragrances that you're like, man, that is full bottle worthy, and this is one of them. But before we get started, I have to say thank you to Allie for very kindly sending me this generous decant, and you can see I have used it pretty well, and been spraying it before bed for the last 5 nights, basically. Just put one on before bed, and my God, I mean, it's just like being taken away on a journey. The name of the fragrance is Overture Woman by Amouage. Now, as you guys know, many of my Amouage journeys started with the men's fragrances, and I went through the men's fragrances, and it was only 2 or 3 years ago before I really got into the women's fragrances, and I started buying things like Fate Woman. I have a video on Lyric Woman, and so I've done some live streams where we basically blind sniff some Amouage women's fragrances, which I've never smelled, thanks to Allie. And so Allie very kindly sent me some other Amouages, which I've never smelled. And this is one of them, Overture Woman, created by Anique Menardo. And, you know, it's actually a very interesting story because Overture Man, which is this one right here, it's this, maybe I'll wear this tomorrow and even review it because this deserves a full review. This is created by one of my favorite Amouage perfumers, Karine Vinchon-Spenner, who basically did some absolute gems for the House of Amouage, things like Memoir Man and Myths Man, and just all kind of amazing creations she made. And her and Christopher Chong worked together like a glove. I think they fit together like a glove in their creations. And this is Christopher Chong's, or one of Christopher Chong's final fragrances for the House of Amouage, Overture Man. And it's actually one of my favorite boozy fragrances of all time. Now, you do have to like some animalic notes because there is something a little furry, a little, you know, a little animalic about the fragrance. I'm not sure which animalic notes that they use, probably a blend of different ones, maybe some civet and castoreum and something like that. But it is a brilliant fragrance with amber and frankincense, and it's boozy. The opening grapefruit is piercing, and yet it doesn't smell like a designer grapefruit. It's just you know, the spice, the cumin. It's just an amazing creation, really. I love this fragrance, and it's called Overture, which is very interesting because Overture, according to one of the dictionary definitions, well, there's really two. It's the beginning of an opera or a play or something like that, a musical, an orchestral piece. And an overture is also supposed to be an introduction to something more substantial. So it is very interesting seeing sort of the curtain, if you will. If you move this around, you can almost see it's supposed to be like the curtain going up and down, right? And obviously we know the curtain was coming down on Christopher Chong's career at Amouage when this was released. So an overture to something more substantial. And I hope that's very true because I wish Christopher Chong all the luck in the world moving forward. You know, I really think he's in the running, in my opinion, for greatest creative director of all time of a house. His run with Amouage is legendary, Hall of Fame stuff. And so this fragrance, Overture Man, was one of Christopher Chong's last fragrances, and this one right here, Overture Woman, is actually the new Fishman, who is Renaud Salman, hence the Fishman moniker. It's his first fragrance. And me and the Fishman, we never really see eye to eye on his path, although he did leave me a very kind $2 super chat whenever I reviewed, what was it, King Blue or something that Amouage recently did that I wasn't a very big fan of. I think that was a tongue-in-cheek super chat or super sticker. But that being said, you know, even though I have been hard on him and his rule over Amouage, and you know what, he's probably just doing what he's instructed to do, which is to sell fragrances. You know, that's the #1 thing now for these houses. It's not the artistic side. Christopher Chong excelled at creating these amazing artistic, and that's really why somebody like me buys niche. I want to smell art in a bottle. I want to smell something different, right? And you know, Christopher Chong excelled at that, and I think Renaud Salman is excelling at selling units, you know. And I used to say that his greatest creation with the house was this right here, which is Silver Oud by Amouage, of course, but I really liked Silver Oud. It had that sort of animalic castoreum bit in the dry down, and I thought this was one of the better creations. I actually, if you were going to force me to wear one of the newer Oud creations by Amouage, it would be this over the new King Blue, in my opinion, because this is more smokier, animalic, a little bit more challenging. I like that much more, in my opinion. And if I remember, there is a beautiful Cypriol note in there as well. So I used to think this was his greatest creation with the house, and it very well may still be. But this little bad boy, Overture Woman, my God, this has really, I would say this is in the running, if not overtakes Silver Oud as the best creation under the Fishman. And, you know, Overture Woman was created by the great Anique Menardo, and every time we say her name, I think it should be the great Anique Menardo. She did some amazing things. I did a 2000 ranked video from my collection from the year 2000 today, and I actually left off Body Koros, so apologies, Anique Menardo. If you ever get a chance to watch this, apologies. Body Koros should have been in there, but you know, it was an hour video. I'm not redoing it, but I did posthumously put it in there. So it is in the ranking, or at least it has its name in the list if you actually go to the description in the video. So I did leave out an Anique Menardo video creation today, and so I figured what better way to redeem myself than to do a review on one of her newer pieces of work. And this could be a one of these future, you know, masterpieces in the making. I don't know if I'd call it a masterpiece yet, but I would call it a potential future. It may be one of those fragrances where people look back on and go, wow, that was the best creation under the rule of Renaud Salman. And so here's what's interesting about this fragrance is if you read the blurb from Amouage, it says that the fragrance is an homage to the modern woman. Now, I don't really agree with that, because as a man, I would have absolutely no problem wearing this fragrance. But Amouage, which is funny because they're going into all of these sort of gender-neutral fragrances. They're not doing man and woman anymore. They're just putting them in these bottles versus the women's bottles, which basically look like this. You know, so they're just putting some in the women's bottles and some in the men's bottles, but they're not calling it men and women. So it's interesting they decided to go with an homage to the modern woman. But this says, elegance and grandeur immortalized in ascent. Overture Woman opens to vibrant Calvados, bergamot, and saffron notes, which are contrasted by the softness of rose centrifolia, geranium, and myrrh. Frankincense, together with labdanum and leather at its base, brings a timeless sophistication to this heady fragrance. And it says, Overture Woman is an amber, woody fragrance. Overture Woman is an homage to the modern woman, bold, cultured, and full of mystique, telling the story of that once-in-a-lifetime moment when nothing else matters. Created by master perfumer Anique Menardo, the great Anique Menardo. The heady fragrance is a symphony of some of the world's rarest and most sought-after ingredients, evoking the intense emotion of a captivating opera performance. So this is a fragrance that really captivated me from the get-go. And this is a fragrance that proves that not all woody ambers are bad, or it's how they're used in a perfume, because this is a Middle Eastern style fragrance done right. Done brilliantly, to perfection. Like I said at the beginning, 100% full bottle worthy. If I wasn't a little tight on cash right now, with the divorce still in full swing, I would buy a bottle of this. This would be full bottle worthy right now. And it's kind of interesting because it opens up spicy and fruity. And if you watch some of the other first impressions, there's not very many videos on this, believe it or not, for whatever reason. But if you watch some of the early impressions on this, like Persolaise did a brilliant live stream where he talked about this, and actually Renaud Salman was in the chat at the time, and Persolaise said he thought that maybe there was like a blackcurrant fruity thing in the top, and I completely understand where he's coming from. Apparently it's an apple note, an apple brandy note. So what's interesting is Of course, in Overture Man, they went with cognac. So they stick with a little bit of this boozy theme, and they go with apple brandy. Now, apple brandy is a little bit of a, I would say, one of these liqueur notes that kind of caught fire because Killian did apple brandy on the rocks, and all of these, apple brandy fragrances came about. I never would have thought about an apple brandy fragrance in particular. In fact, when I smell this, I just get this generic overall fruitiness. In fact, the fragrance that came to mind right off the bat, although I actually think this is much better executed than this particular fragrance I'm going to mention, is a fragrance from the house of Abdul Samad Al-Qureshi, and it's called Safari Extreme. So this is the fragrance that came to mind instantly. Now, this uses mango, rose, and oud, and sandalwood, and amber, and vanilla, and stuff like that. So it has the same concept, but they use different notes. And actually, Overture Woman ruined this fragrance for me. Ruined it, because Overture Woman is so much better than Safari Extreme that I honestly don't know if I could wear this. I might sell this and just eventually, when I'm able to sell stuff, I might sell this and buy a bottle of Overture Woman, just pay the difference, because to me, Safari Extreme is, I like it, I like the DNA, but Overture Woman is so much better executed. And so what's crazy is when you first spray, you definitely get that overall fruitiness. Persolet said blackcurrant, and it's brilliantly executed, by the way. It's resinous, and you get a little bit of this booziness from the apple brandy, but it's not in-your-face boozy, right? It just adds a little bit of like a boozy haze to the fragrance, if you will. Oh, it's so good. And, I can completely see, imagine this sort of traditionally Middle Eastern style fragrance where it has the fruity rose and big saffron, huge saffron, with this oud accord. Even though there's no oud listed, it almost gives off a little bit of an oud accord. And I'll tell you why. To my nose, the reason why it gives off a little bit of an oud accord is the saffron note is actually overdose. So this is a actual saffron that I bought from Costco a few years ago. Sometimes Costco has them at some decent prices because saffron is actually extremely expensive. Saffron has this, I actually did a This Is Not a Top 10 Saffron video if you want to kind of dive into the note of saffron. But interestingly enough, it sort of has this, chemical smell. It's a little bit of a strange note. Saffron can sometimes give off this chemical-like smell. You know what it reminded me of, actually? As it continued to dry, that chemical rubbery smell. Sometimes it can be slightly rubbery, and just imagine slightly rubbery chemical saffron-like note that ends up smelling like you're sticking your head into a brand new pair of Nike shoes. Not just any Nike shoes, though. Nike shoes from when I was a kid, circa 1990s, right? The old school Shacks. Well, those are Reeboks, but imagine like that time period. Or the Nikes that had Nike like written in bubble letters on the side, right? For some reason, shoes from the 90s, or maybe it was just the shoe stores I went in, had a little bit of a different smell. Maybe they used different rubbers and stuff like that. But for some reason, I remember that smell distinctly. And the saffron in this, saffron is overdosed in the top to me. And it's a brilliant overdose of saffron. Sometimes when you overdose a note in a perfume, it just doesn't work. Here, it works brilliantly because it gives off a little bit of this vibe of, it's kind of like in the early 2000s and mid 2000s when everyone was putting oud in everything, just because it gave it this little bit of a, smoky, woody, but a exotic smell. The saffron in this almost works as if there's an oud note. And it mixes with that apple brandy, and you get the resins almost instantly. So you get sort of this plasticky, resinous smell that comes along with it. And you get the warmth of myrrh. Myrrh can sometimes have this fungal, licorice-like smell. So imagine like a the warmth of myrrh with the warmth again of benzoin. It's a very warm fragrance. It's a true oriental, and a brilliant rose centrifolia note, and geranium. Geranium can sometimes come across as spicy, green, or rosy, or sometimes a mixture of all three. But here it adds to the rosiness with a little bit of spice. And so you get the geranium with the rose centrifolia, and you know, that cleaner saffron. So imagine having like a cleaner. Imagine having like a bleach, almost like a bleach smell. Sometimes the saffron to me can come across as having a little bit of a bleach smell. But it's, oh God, it's so good. And you know, the floral touch is there almost from the very beginning. Go watch my video on Louis Vuitton's, oh God, what's it called? It's one of the only Louis Vuitton reviews I did. Someone sent me a sample, and I reviewed it off of the sample. Fleur du Désert, Flowers of the Desert, right? And go watch my review of Fleur du Désert. And it has this similar Middle Eastern style rose that's executed. You know, it's almost like a dry, floral, it's almost like, imagine that the rose was dipped in this, you know, glass made from the sand of the desert that it's actually growing out of. And it turned the rose into having this very chemical, brittle, like texture. So imagine you could just break the rose and it cracks like a glass rose. But you get the beautiful smell of the rose. That's the way that the chemical saffron sort of just coats the rose note as it continues to dry. And of course, as it dries even further, that's where you get this brilliant leather. And you all know I'm an absolute leather freak. I love leather. It's probably my favorite note. I mean, if you made me rank my favorite notes, leather would be number one. And then there would be animalic notes and tobaccos and stuff like that. But the rose is quite earthy, deserty, brittle, and it's you know, the rose centrifolias are those big giant roses, right? If my memory serves right, they're the ones that are huge roses. And the rose in this, almost you get it from the very beginning almost. But that mixture of apple brandy, saffron, you know, the resins, the rose, the leather, and then of course you get that patented Amouage frankincense and the labdanum in the base. The labdanum, of course, gives it that sticky, pudgy. Also, labdanum can also be slightly leathery as well. And you know, when I think about this fragrance, this is an Amouage. It's funny because sometimes when I review some of the newer Amouage that Renaud Salmon has done, I'll say this is not an Amouage fragrance. Yes, it's nice, not an Amouage. This is an Amouage. And so what's crazy is it's almost like Christopher Chong gave him the blueprint. In the first go around, he took that blueprint and ran with it and executed it brilliantly. And then he just threw the blueprint out and went, no, we're going this way now. And so, you know, as an Amouage fan, it's a little disappointing, the path that the house has taken, let's say. But this fragrance, the very first one that he did for Amouage, with, of course, Anique Menardo's help, and the blueprint from Christopher Chong. What a fragrance. What an absolute fragrance they created. 100% full bottle worthy. If you like that sort of Middle Eastern style, if you like something like this, you know, like I said, Safari Extreme has the mango instead of the apple or apple brandy. And this does have rose and oud and sandalwood and ambers, and it also has an orange blossom note, which makes this feel a little bit fresher. This is a little bit more resinous with the leather, the labdanum, you know, the heavier myrrh notes and stuff like that. Now, this lists an oud note, like I said, but this feels like there's an oud note in here. So imagine taking Safari Extreme, blending it with a vintage Amouage fragrance, and you know, you really get something like Overture Woman with that, and then of course you add that booziness from the apple brandy or from this Overture line of Amouage. So just as an early impression, because again, I don't have a bottle, I've just sort of been wearing this decant out, and every night I keep telling myself I have to do a video on Overture Woman. It is so damn good. I have to do a video on it. It is necessary that I do a video on Overture Woman. And I mean, this would be full bottle. It's 100% full bottle worthy. If you have, like I have, if you have been avoiding Overture Woman, it's funny because those of you out there, there have been more than just one, multiple people keep saying, Ramsey, you need to smell Overture Woman. It's right up your alley. You need to smell it. And I keep going, yep, okay, yep. And finally a decant landed in my lap thanks to Allie. And damn, all of you that were saying that were 100% right. So bravo to the Fish Man for creating something like this. I wish he would get back to this. I wish he would go back to the blueprint that Chong left him and work off of that. And, you know, bravo to those of you who shouted this out and pushed it my way. If you have not smelled this and you're a fan of the old Amouages, or even if you're a fan of something like this, the Overture Man, if you like boozy fragrances in general, I would urge you to try. I think I'm going to wear this tomorrow. I'm going to wear this to work tomorrow. Maybe come home and review it. We'll see how I feel. But if you are a fan of Overture Man or boozy fragrances or this Middle Eastern style of perfumery, I would check this out. I think this is one of Anique Menardo's best works. And you know what's so funny about that is I did an Anique Menardo ranked video, Perfumer's Portfolio video. And literally the day after I did the video, I got Figment Man in. This one right here. I got Figment Man in. And I actually went back just like I did today. Again, I don't know what it is about Anique Menardo that I leave fragrances of hers out. But I went back and added this in and said, if I had had this bottle when I did that video, this came like a day or two after that, this would be number one. This will be my number one Anique Menardo. And you know what's funny is now that I'm smelling this. Now, I don't have a bottle of this, so I don't think I did decants. I only did full bottles when I did my rankings. But if I had a full bottle of this, this may even be the number one Anique Menardo. So it's interesting for a perfumer like her over the years. She did stuff for Lolita Lampica, Azzaro, Boss, Lacoste, Olfactive Studios, Dior, Guerlain, Davidoff, YSL, D Squared, Bulgari, Paul Gaultier, Jean-Paul Gaultier, Boucheron. She did all of these houses, but it's the work that she's done with Amouage in these last, 6 years, whatever. I forgot when this one came out. 18 or something, 17, 18, 19. But it's the work that she did with Amouage, I think that is the top of her career. Yeah, Figment Man came out in 2017. And it's funny because I remember smelling this. And going, nope, not for me. No way. No way, no how would I ever buy this and wear it. And a couple years later, I'm going, my God, I need this like right now. And so it's just funny how your taste change. That's why I always tell people, if you smell something, don't just give up on it. Put it aside, put it on the shelf, come back to it in 3 months. If you still don't like it, put it on the shelf, come back to it in another 3 months or whatever it is, a month or two. Revisit it because your nose definitely changes as your journey goes on. But the work she has done for Amouage has been absolutely unbelievable. So again, thank you, Allie. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Let me know what you guys think of Overture Woman. I know the conversation around what the Fish Man has done to Amouage and Christopher Chong and all of that stuff is always a hot topic on my channel, but I do love hearing your thoughts, even if you disagree with me. I love hearing your thoughts. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. I love seeing your faces in the comments. So cheers, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.